This house is kind of unremarkable. If it were finished, it would look pretty nice. But there is no laughter or noise in the yard of this house. It stands deserted and overgrown with grass. Lots of people dream of owning their own house but can't afford it. And here's a nice house like this standing idle for no one. And only by knowing its history can you understand why it hasn't brought happiness to anyone. The story of this house is this. There was an old lady named Ellie. Her husband passed away many years ago. When she buried her only son, she was left all alone. Ellie had a grown grandson named Jake who even lived in the same town. But in all those years, Jake never once visited his grandmother, never brought her medicine or food. He never even took the time to call and see how she was doing or wish her a happy birthday. He didn't even invite her to his wedding. Ellie didn't matter to his grandson. He didn't even think of her, never once mentioned his grandmother. But Ellie had neighbors she had been friends with for years, who helped her when she was lonely. They bought groceries for her, called doctors, sat by her bedside when she was sick, and helped with household chores. In gratitude, Ellie bequeathed her home to these neighbors who were always there for her. They weren't rich, they needed a place to live. She wanted them to have it to remember her. When Ellie died, the neighbors paid for the funeral, put a monument on her grave, and continued to care for her. But after the funeral, Jake suddenly showed up. While he was alive, he didn't need Ellie. But as soon as he learned of her death, he remembered that he was her grandson and went. Not to her grave. He never visited her grave, never brought flowers. He went to court to claim his inheritance. Eventually, Jake got the house through the courts. But he would not live there. The neighbors did not continue the lawsuit. They didn't want to prove anything and just gave the house to Jake. But there were other neighbors who saw Jake ignoring his grandmother. They couldn't keep quiet. They judged Jake. Eventually, he sold the house and bought land on the other side of town to build a new house. But the house remained unfinished. In 2014, he went abroad and never returned. He could not even sell his house. Those to whom the house was bequeathed could not buy another dwelling. So the house was left empty and gradually deteriorating. But this inheritance could have helped other people. This house could have brought happiness to those who really needed it. But, as they say, you can't build happiness on someone else's grief. The dishonest inheritance did no one any good.